February 2, 2010, Lil Wayne releases Rebirth to a 2.0 rating from Pitchfork. Rolling Stone calls it a baffling mistake. Fans who worshipped Thaw Carter III feel betrayed. The man who declared himself the best rapper alive is now being mocked for auto-tune rock songs about skateboarding. But here is what nobody understood then. Wayne had been planning this for years, and the wreckage was always part of the point. 5 guitars. Wayne bought 5 custom guitars before recording Rebirth. 5 instruments he barely knew how to play. 5 symbols of his refusal to stay in the lane that made him the best rapper alive. This is not a story about a failed album. This is a story about what happens when the most dominant force in hip-hop decides that dominance is not enough. That being the best is a trap. That the throne everyone fought to give him felt more like a cage. And when you are Lil Wayne in 2010, when you have sold more than anyone, rapped better than anyone, worked harder than anyone, the only rebellion left is to become something else entirely, even if it destroys you. The industry never forgave him for Rebirth, not because it was bad, but because it was proof that even gods get bored. In 2005, Lil Wayne was not yet the biggest rapper alive. He was something more dangerous. He was the hungriest. While other rappers released one album every 2 years and disappeared into promotional tours, Wayne was everywhere. He appeared on every remix. He bodied every guest verse. He released mixtapes that felt more essential than most artists' albums. Dedication 2 dropped in 2006, and it was not just a collection of freestyles over other people's beats. It was a statement. Wayne was taking the biggest songs in hip-hop and rap, claiming them as his own, and making the original versions feel obsolete. The Dedication 2 version of Swagga Like Us hit harder than the original. His verse over Upgrade You made the Beyoncé and Jay-Z track feel incomplete without him. This was not a rapper waiting for permission. This was a hostile takeover disguised as a free download. And it worked. By the time Day Drought 3 arrived in 2007, Wayne had shifted the entire power structure of rap. Mixtapes were no longer promotional tools. They were the main event. Day Drought 3 is still considered one of the greatest mixtapes ever recorded. Wayne rapped over Bone Thugs, over Akon, over Amy Winehouse. He turned Rehab into a rap anthem. He took the instrumental from Aaliyah's More Than a Woman and delivered verses that felt like he was in a trance. The technical skill was superhuman, but more than that, the confidence was unmatched. Wayne rapped like he had already won, like the competition was so far behind him that he was experimenting just to stay interested. And this is where the rock obsession began. In interviews during this period, Wayne talked constantly about Nirvana, about Kurt Cobain, about Jimi Hendrix. He said he wanted to play guitar. He said he was bored with just rapping. People assumed it was the eccentricity of an artist at his peak, the quirky side interest of someone who had conquered his main craft. But Wayne was serious. He started carrying a guitar on the tour bus. He would sit in the back and fumble through chords, teaching himself in the gaps between cities. His engineers noticed he was listening to less hip-hop and more rock. He would play Nirvana's Unplugged album on repeat. This was not a rapper at his peak enjoying his success. This was a rapper already looking for the exit. The mixtape run from 2005 to 2007 made Wayne unstoppable. But unstoppable in hip-hop meant something specific. It meant you had to keep rapping, keep delivering the same product that made people love you, keep proving you were the best. And Wayne was realizing that being the best was boring, that mastery in one lane felt like a dead end. The world did not see this yet. The world saw a man on the verge of total domination. And in 2008, that domination arrived. Thaw Carter III dropped on June 10, 2008, and sold over 1 million copies in its first week. In an era when the music industry was collapsing, when album sales were plummeting, when everyone said piracy and streaming were killing traditional releases, Lil Wayne moved 1 million units in 7 days. A milli became an anthem. Lollipop became a pop crossover that put Wayne on radio stations that never played rap. Mr. Carter featured Jay-Z, and the symbolism was clear. Jay was passing the crown. Wayne was no longer just the best rapper alive. He was the biggest artist in music. The lyrics on the Carter 3 felt like Wayne was rapping from another dimension. On Let the Beat Build, he delivered lines that were so dense with wordplay that fans had to rewind and decode them. On Tie My Hands, he reflected on Hurricane Katrina and the devastation in New Orleans with a rawness that felt personal and political. On Comfortable, he showed vulnerability, rapping about relationships and insecurity in ways that contradicted the invincible persona. The album was a masterpiece, critically acclaimed, commercially massive, culturally unavoidable. But success on this level creates a prison. When you sell 1 million copies in a week, everyone wants the same thing again. The label wants Thaw Carter 4 immediately. The fans want more A Milli, more Lollipop, more proof that Wayne is still the best. The industry wants predictability. They want the formula repeated. And Wayne, in the middle of this celebration, in the middle of this victory lap, started recording Rebirth. The sessions for Rebirth began during the same period as Thaw Carter III. While Wayne was crafting the album that would make him the biggest rapper alive, he was also experimenting with rock music in separate studios. He brought in live bands. He worked with producers who had never touched hip-hop. He recorded Prom Queen, a pop-rock song with auto-tune vocals and electric guitars that sounded nothing like anything in his catalog. He told his label he was making a rock album. They thought he was joking. They thought it was a side project. A few songs for a deluxe edition, maybe a bonus EP. They did not understand that Wayne was serious, that he was willing to risk everything he had just built. In interviews after Thaw Carter III, Wayne talked about the rock album openly. He said he was tired of rapping, that he had said everything he needed to say in that form, that he wanted to explore something new. Journalists laughed. Fans dismissed it. The idea of Lil Wayne making a rock album sounded like the whim of an artist high on his own success. But Wayne kept recording. He kept pushing. And in early 2009, he released Prom Queen as the lead single for Rebirth. The reaction was instant confusion. Prom Queen sounded like a mid-2000s pop-punk song filtered through autotune and performed by someone who was still learning how to sing. The guitars were simple. The lyrics were about high school romance. The energy was completely detached from the Lil Wayne who had just dominated hip-hop. Fans did not know how to react. Some thought it was satire. Others thought it was a publicity stunt. Wayne was asked about it in every interview, and his answers were always the same. He was serious. This was not a joke. Rebirth was a real album, and it was going to be rock, not rap. The label panicked. Cash Money Records had just watched Wayne sell 1 million copies of a rap album. Now he was telling them he wanted to release a rock album that alienated his core fan base. They begged him to scrap it. They offered to shelve the project and move directly to Thaw Carter IV. Wayne refused. He pushed back the release of Rebirth twice, insisting he needed more time to get it right. The delays only increased the anticipation and the anxiety. By the time Rebirth was finally scheduled for February 2010, the expectations were impossibly tangled. Some fans were curious, most were skeptical. Critics were sharpening their knives. Wayne began performing with a live band on tour. He brought Kevin Rudolph, a rock producer and guitarist, into Young Money. He played guitar on stage during rap songs, even though he was still a beginner. The image was strange. The best rapper alive, holding an instrument he barely knew how to play, trying to reinvent himself in real time. And the question nobody was asking yet was whether Wayne understood what he was risking. Whether he knew that the fan base who made him the biggest artist in the world would not follow him into rock music. Or whether he knew exactly what he was doing, and the risk was the point. February 2nd, 2010. Rebirth finally releases. The reviews are brutal. Pitchfork gives it a 2.0 out of 10. Rolling Stone calls it one of the most misguided albums ever made by a major artist. Fans who loved Thaw Carter III feel betrayed. The rock songs are awkward. Wayne's singing is unpolished. The guitar playing is basic. The production feels like it is trying to be pop-punk, alternative rock, and rap rock all at once and failing at each. Prom Queen, Drop the World, and On Fire try to bridge the gap between Wayne's rap identity and his rock ambitions, but they sound like they exist in no genre. They are too rock for hip-hop fans and too hip-hop for rock fans. But there are moments on Rebirth where something else happens. On Paradise, Wayne raps over a rock instrumental and the fusion feels genuine. On The Price is Wrong, the energy is raw and aggressive in a way that connects to punk. These moments are rare, but they reveal what Wayne was trying to do. He was not trying to make a great rock album. He was trying to prove he could exist outside the boundaries that had been built around him. He was testing whether his artistry mattered more than his brand. The answer was no. Rebirth sold 176,000 copies in its first week. For most artists, this would be a success. For Lil Wayne, coming off 1 million first week for Thaw Carter III, it was a disaster. The narrative became immediate. Lil Wayne had committed commercial suicide. He had betrayed his fan base. He had destroyed his own momentum. And just 1 month later, in March 2010, Wayne began an 8-month jail sentence at Rikers Island for gun possession. The timing made Rebirth feel like a commercial disaster with no recovery plan. Wayne was locked up. The album was being mocked. The momentum from Thaw Carter III was completely gone. But while Wayne was in jail, his team released I Am Not a Human Being, a rap album recorded before his sentence. It debuted at #1. The contrast was brutal. Fans loved Wayne the rapper. They rejected Wayne the rock star. And when Wayne was released from Rikers in November 2010, the question became whether he would apologize for Rebirth or pretend it never happened. Wayne chose neither. He did not apologize. He did not disown the album, but he also did not defend it. He moved on. And this silence was more damaging than any explanation could have been. It made Rebirth feel like a mistake even to Wayne himself, like something he tried and failed and wanted to forget. The Carter IV dropped in August 2011, 9 months after Wayne was released from jail. It sold 964,000 copies in its first week. Commercially, Wayne was back on top. The numbers proved he was still still a massive artist. She Will, How to Love, and Mirror were hits. John featuring Rick Ross became a radio staple. The album debuted at #1 and stayed there. But something had changed. The mystique was gone. The aura of invincibility that Wayne carried from 2007 to 2008 had vanished. Thy Carter 4 was a successful album, but it did not feel like an event. It felt like a return to form, which meant it felt like Wayne was going backward instead of forward. The verses were solid, but they were not transcendent. The wordplay was clever, but it was not mind-bending. Wayne sounded like he was doing what was expected of him, and for the first time in his career, that was enough. He was no longer trying to be the hungriest. He was trying to reclaim the throne, but the throne had changed. Drake and Nicki Minaj, both signed to Young Money, were ascending. Drake's Take Care dropped 2 months after Thaw Carter 4, and it was hailed as a masterpiece. Nicki's Pink Friday had already established her as a superstar. Wayne had built Young Money into an empire, but now the artists he had mentored were starting to overshadow him. Drake's introspective style was dominating the sound of rap. Nicki's versatility was redefining what a female rapper could be. Wayne was still respected, still successful, but he was no longer the center. Critics started asking if Rebirth broke something in him. Not because it failed commercially, but because it revealed a truth Wayne could no longer hide. He cared more about experimenting than dominating. The hunger that defined the mixtape era, the obsessive work ethic that made him appear on every remix and release a classic mixtape every few months, was gone. Wayne was still releasing music, but the pace had slowed. The features were fewer. The verses felt less urgent. Between 2011 and 2013, Wayne released Thaw Carter 4, I Am Not a Human Being 2, and appeared on numerous features. But the magic was fading. I Am Not a Human Being 2 received mixed reviews. Songs like Love Me and Rich as Fuck were hits, but the album felt bloated and unfocused. Wayne's voice sounded strained. His lyrics felt more repetitive. Fans started to wonder if the prison sentence had changed him, if the legal troubles had drained his creativity, or if Rebirth had simply exposed the limits of his interest in being the best rapper alive. The truth was probably all of it. Wayne had spent years being the hungriest, the most prolific, the most undeniable. And once he reached the top, once he proved he was the best, the only question left was what comes next. Rebirth was his answer. It was a rejection of the throne. And when the world rejected Rebirth, Wayne was left in a strange limbo. He could not go back to being the hungry underdog, but he also could not move forward into the experimental artist he wanted to be. So he existed in the middle, still successful, still respected, but no longer inevitable. Then the label war began. In 2014, Wayne's relationship with Cash Money Records collapsed. Birdman, the co-founder of Cash Money and Wayne's mentor, refused to release Thaw Carter 5. Wayne had recorded the album, the songs were finished, but Birdman would not clear it. The reasons were financial. Wayne claimed he was owed millions in unpaid royalties. He sued Cash Money for $51 million. He demanded his masters. He wanted out of the contract, and Birdman refused to let him go. The legal battle dragged on for years. During this time, Wayne released almost nothing. A few Lucy's, a collaborative album with 2 Chainz called Colligrove, but no solo projects, no Thaw Carter 5. Fans waited. The anticipation built, but so did the frustration. Wayne was invisible. The man who used to flood the market with music was now silent. The industry moved on. New rappers emerged. Kendrick Lamar released To Pimp a Butterfly and became the critical darling of hip-hop. J. Cole built a loyal fan base. Future dominated the sound of trap, and Wayne was stuck in court. When Thaw Carter 5 finally dropped in September 2018, after Wayne settled with Cash Money and left the label, it was celebrated as a return to form. Mona Lisa, featuring Kendrick Lamar, was hailed as one of the best songs of the year. Dedicate, Uproar, and Let It Fly showed that Wayne still had the technical skill and the charisma. The album debuted at #1. It sold 480,000 copies first week. But the gap between 2013 and 2018 was a creative dead zone. 5 years where Wayne released almost nothing. 5 years where his absence allowed the culture to forget how dominant he once was. Some blamed the label, and certainly Birdman's refusal to release Thaw Carter 5 was destructive. But others believed Wayne lost his edge after Rebirth taught him that his fan base had limits, that the audience who called him the best rapper alive only wanted him to be the best rapper alive. They did not want him to be a rock star. They did not want him to experiment. They wanted the product they had paid for. And once Wayne understood that, once he realized the throne came with conditions, the hunger disappeared. Here is what nobody talks about. Rebirth was not a mistake, it was a test. Wayne wanted to know if his fans loved him or loved the product he was selling. The answer was the product. Rebirth failed because Wayne was no longer willing to give people what they wanted on demand. He chose artistic freedom over dominance, and in hip-hop, that choice is unforgivable. The industry never forgave him because he proved that even the best rapper alive could walk away from the throne. And once you walk away, even for one album, Someone else sits down. Drake took the crown. Kendrick claimed the critical respect. Future owned the sound, and Wayne became a legend, which is another word for past tense. Wayne is still releasing music today. Funeral dropped in 2020. Thay Carter 6 has been teased. He still performs. He still gets called a legend. But he has never reclaimed the throne he held in 2008. Was Rebirth the reason? Or was Rebirth just the moment Wayne admitted he did not want to be the best anymore? And if being the best means you can never experiment, never fail, never try something that might not work, then what kind of prison is greatness? Wayne bought 5 guitars. He taught himself to play. He made an album that everyone hated, and in doing so, he freed himself from the expectation that he would be the best rapper alive forever. The cost was everything, but maybe that was the only price worth paying.